Honestly, I never expected the plot of my life to spiral out like some messed up soap opera with a live comment section roasting me in real time, but here we are. I forced Emily Carter, the second female lead in this ridiculous mess, to marry me just to mess with Ryan Kim, the so-called male lead, who's been nothing but a walking cringe compilation since the day he stepped into my life, and every time he pissed me off, I made Emily pay the price emotionally, verbally, sometimes even physically by dragging her to ride that damn horse in heels if she blinked the wrong way, just to assert dominance, because I told her straight up, every time Ryan Kim disgusts me, I'll make you feel I understand. She didn't answer at first, just glared at me with those stormy eyes, humiliated and seething, whispering hoarsely, "James Walker, you'll regret this," and maybe I should have listened, but I was too far gone in my own ego to care, too focused on controlling her like some petty revenge trophy, until the day I overheard her saying to Ryan, "Of all people, my husband's been a little cold to me lately. Could you walk past him again?" And I swear my brain short-circuited because she sounded like she actually wanted to provoke me by using him, and the barrage in front of me was just scrolling non-stop like some cursed Reddit thread. Why didn't the heroine just cancel the engagement and go chase the male lead, followed by, "She loves the stand-in but can't let go of her white moonlight," and then someone dropped the bomb. Second female lead Emily Carter is 10 times better than that green tea Nicole White, and that's when I snapped because apparently Emily, the girl I chased for months while studying in the UK and who never once gave me the time of day, actually liked my stand-in. The one Nicole had been dating secretly just because he looked 60% like me. The same Nicole who disappeared on our engagement night to fly overseas and chase her substitute boyfriend. And yeah, you guessed it, I was left solo at the venue like a complete idiot while everyone whispered and laughed behind their champagne glasses, and all I had was a flurry of on-screen comments treating my misery like primetime entertainment, telling me I was the real Bai Yueguang in Nicole's life, the tragic white moonlight who never got the girl, and Emily, the second female lead I thought I controlled, turned out to be the one person who might have been real with me all along, so I called her. Full of rage and disbelief, demanding, "What's your relationship with Ryan Kim?" And even the barrage popped off like, oh, Bai Yueguang is losing it, but I didn't care, I just wanted answers, and Emily answered, calm as ice, saying, "Ryan once saved me," and in my head I was screaming like, "What, you like everyone who saves you? Should I be worried about your dentist too?" But I kept my voice cool and said, "My fiancé ran off to find your hero, how do you suggest I deal with that?" And suddenly the barrage lit up again like it was Super Bowl Sunday. Bai Yueguang is about to lose it, he's totally gonna make the male lead suffer now, and someone even dared to bet lunch that Emily wouldn't agree to my next move. But when I said she had to compensate me for losing Nicole and warned her not to humiliate me again or else, she just said one word, "Okay," and the entire feed exploded with, "I hope I'm hallucinating," and, "He's not bluffing, is he?" And honestly, I wasn't, because I dragged Emily straight to the registry office without even telling her family, married her right then and there, and surprisingly, the Carters didn't even protest because the G Familimi family had pulled itself back from the brink under my leadership and now we were profitable again, which meant the Carters weren't losing anything, especially not with how much damage Nicole's elopement had done to their reputation, so our marriage suddenly became the perfect excuse to go after the White family and strip a little flesh off them as payback. But karma wasn't done with me yet because on my wedding night, Nicole had the audacity to blow up my phone with 30 missed calls and finally bark at me over the line, "James, I never said to cancel the engagement. Who told you to act on your own, like girl, weren't you halfway to France chasing a bootleg version of me?" I said flatly, "You must love that guy a lot if you'd ditch your wedding to find him. I was wrong to help you too," and she snapped back all defensive, "Don't be dramatique, just your stand-in. I never said we're over. I'll talk to you when I'm back," and that's when I laughed bitterly and said, "Nicole White, who do you think you are? You were just randomly assigned as my fiancé for a business merger. You really think I've been in love with you this whole time?" And I hung up before she could spiral into one of her entitled tantrums, while the barrage gave me a standing ovation. Bai Yueguang finally said it, she was eating from the bowl while staring at the pot, "This is top-tier face slap material," and it was only then I realized that everyone thought I was the white moonlight Nicole couldn't forget, that I was just a stand-in in someone else's twisted love story, and suddenly, the Pieces clicked after I went abroad. Nicole started dating that budget version of me just to fill the emotional void, and somehow ended up falling for him, turning our engagement into a farce and me into the fool who thought I was in control. And as much as I hate to admit it, the barrage was right about one thing: Emily Carter, the woman I forced into this mess, might be the only one who didn't treat me like a prop. Because even when she rejected me back then, she did it with a polite smile and calm grace, and even though she fed stray cats like a saint and glowed in golden hour like a damn movie scene, she never gave me false hope, but she never gave me answers either, and maybe that's why I snapped and clung to her like some revenge mechanism, because with her, I didn't feel like a backup plan, I felt challenged, and maybe that's what I needed: someone who wouldn't pity me when I was down, someone who could match me even when I was ugly and cruel. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Because the way things are heading, this isn't the beginning of a love story, it's just the fallout of everyone playing pretend, and trust me, I'm not done playing yet. Emily Carter might have agreed to marry me without blinking, but that didn't mean she submitted, not in the way I wanted, not in the way that mattered, so I kept pushing her, testing her, making her ride horses whenever I was pissed off, throwing cold stares across the table at breakfast, letting silence stew between us until it boiled over at night, where I'd punish her not with words, but with dominance. And every time she flinched or clenched her jaw in frustration, the barrage just went nuts like we were putting on a reality show. Second female lead is still holding her pride, she's totally going to snap one of these days, and the truth is, I thought I was the one in control, thought this was my stage and she was just reacting to my moves, until one night, I caught her on the phone, whispering to Ryan Kim again, saying the words I can't unhear: "Can you walk past my husband again?" Like this was all some sick game of emotional chess. And I swear I nearly lost it. I grabbed her phone mid-call, stared her down, and asked her point blank, "Why him?" And she just looked at me like I was the crazy one, like I was the one playing pretend in this entire relationship, and before I could tear her apart verbally, she turned away, said nothing, and walked into the guest room like I didn't exist. And of course, as if on cue, Ryan Kim's name popped up on her phone again, lighting up the screen with desperate texts, and the barrage started rolling in like a stadium crowd. Second female led, still a virgin for the male lead. Nah bro, she's clearly giving Bai Yueguang something extra. Wait, are we getting a scene? Where's my popcorn? And I swear I don't even know what possessed May locked the door, pinned Emily to the carpet, and I wasn't rough, but I wasn't gentle either, and I remember the exact moment she stopped resisting and just stared at me, wide-eyed, her voice trembling as she said, "James, don't," but her body didn't match her tone, and I know how that sounds, but I swear, it wasn't about power, it was about breaking through her walls. And when Ryan called again mid-scene, all breathless asking, "Ryan, are the rumors true?" Yeah, he still called her that, like they were stuck in some nostalgic drama. I picked up and told him, calm as ever, "Unless you're stupid, you should be able to guess what we're doing," and silence followed by that delicious crack in his voice, and I ended the call, looked Emily dead in the eyes, and said, "Every time he disgusts me, I'll take it out on you," and she trembled and muttered, "You'll regret this." But I laughed because I wasn't the one on my knees, not yet anyway, and that night we went from the floor to the bed, to the couch, to the windows, and the barrage was losing its mind. 7 times a night confirmed. Why is my screen black? I demand justice. Imagination is a powerful thing, brother, and I won't lie, I started using it as therapy. Nicole kept pestering me, I bought a collar for Emily, Ryan made another smug post online, I gifted her a diamond waist chain, someone in the barrage called me unhinged, I made their screen black with another impromptu writing session. It became routine, almost comforting in a deranged way. And then came the charity auction, the one we attended together like a proper couple, walking side by side with all the fake smiles and tense shoulders, and guess who showed up? Nicole White in a designer dress 2 sizes too small, dragging Ryan Kim by the arm like a designer handbag, trying so hard to look happy it was painful, and of course she had to make a scene, strutting up to me and saying smugly, "James, thank you for helping me realize you're actually just a basic man," and I was about to respond with something brutal when Emily tugged my wrist lightly, her face flushed, whispering, "This is outside, wait until we get home, okay?" And the entire room turned into a vacuum, dead silent while the barrage exploded. What did the second female lead just say? "Our cold beauty is Soft Nell. Someone call the police, by Yueguang turned her Tsundra, and even I froze because for once, I couldn't tell if she was bluffing or being serious, but Nicole's smile cracked, and Ryan looked like someone slapped him, and when he whispered, Ryan, what did you say? Emily looked at him like he was dirt and said, it has nothing to do with you, Mr. Kim. Please have some self-respect, and Ryan, the knight in shining emotional trauma, suddenly looked like he was about to cry, muttering, it's me who hurt you, I'm sorry, which made Nicole lose it, yanked him away like a leash, shooting Emily a glare like she wanted to commit murder, and I couldn't stop grinning. Smart girl, I whispered to Emily, and I swear I caught the tiniest smile twitch across her lips before she went back to her emotionless facade, and from that moment on, it was war. Every item I raised my paddle for, Nicole made Ryan bid against me, even if he hesitated or flinched, and when Ryan finally said, Nicole, I don't have that kind of money, she snatched the bidding card from him and did it herself, all while hugging him like she wasn't completely emasculating him in public, and the barrage was howling, is this love or Stockholm Syndrome? Who collects this much trash and calls it treasure? And just when I was about to bid one final time, Emily raised the paddle herself, pushed the price to 50 million, and calmly turned to me, saying, I'll give it to you, and I just stared at her like, what dimension did we just enter? The barrage was no help, everyone was screaming, what, in capital letters, and she just rolled her eyes and said, don't be so smug, I just bought peace and quiet so you'll stop tormenting me, and I chuckled, good, I like breaking in wild ones, and the comment section lit up with accusations of abuse, declarations of true love, someone betting their entire existence that we were endgame now. And I didn't even care anymore. Back at home, I couldn't stop staring at that stupid pendant. While Emily showed up in a towel, arms crossed, red rope marks still fresh on her skin, saying, I've got work tomorrow, and I told her she could have the night off if she stayed quiet, but she just stood there, narrowed her eyes, and called me out, this is another test, isn't it? And when I tried to deny it, she climbed into my lap like a queen mounting her throne and whispered, let's get it over with, I have to wake up early, and I paused, thrown off for once, and the barrage started. Hurling popcorn, she said. What? She volunteered. Second female lead, blink twice if you're in danger, and that night she was different, aggressive, insatiable, like she was trying to make a point with every move, and by the time it was 3 a.m., I was the one begging for sleep, muttering, didn't you say you had to work? And she just smirked through sweat and said, this is all you got, so I flipped her over, pinned her down, and whispered, then don't expect to walk tomorrow. But the next morning when my alarm went off, the bed was empty and she was already gone, like she was proving she was stronger, more stubborn, more unfazed than me, and when I dragged myself to my brother's place later looking like a walking corpse, he asked if my married life was fulfilling, and I deadpanned, not a drop left, and he cracked up while changing the subject to Nicole and Ryan, telling me that the Kim and White families were falling apart after the auction disaster. The arranged engagement was cancelled, and the Bai family was considering marrying Nicole off again to save face, and I didn't even flinch, just shrugged and said, you reap what you sow, and while the barrage called me cruel and heartless, I sat back and smiled, because if there's one thing I've learned in all this chaos, it's that love and revenge often wear the same perfume, but one of them stings more when it fades. When I showed up at the hotel to hand over paperwork to the new manager, the last person I expected to see was Ryan Kim, standing outside like he'd been rehearsing a breakup monologue for days, eyes sunken, jaw clenched like he was chewing broken glass, and the moment he saw me, he strode forward like he had something righteous to say, but all I could think was, not today, man, I'm too tired for your melodramatic savior complex. Yet I let him speak, and he said, James, we need to talk, in that strained, desperate voice people use when they're about to lose everything, and I replied, there's nothing left to say between us, but he didn't budge, just looked me dead in the eye and said, Emily married you because of me, and I won't let her stay trapped in this marriage. And that was the moment I realized he really thought he was the male lead in some redemption arc where he gets the girl back and walks off into the sunset with applause from the crowd, but instead of getting mad, I tilted my head and said, then let me make this easier for you. If you show up again, I'll make sure every time you do, I take it out on Emily. And yeah, maybe that was harsh, but I was tired of him pretending like his feelings gave him ownership of her, like he had a monopoly on her happiness, and that shut him up for a second, until he exploded, "You have no humanity. Did you even know she used to have severe depression?" If I hadn't pulled her off the edge, she would have jumped, and I froze not outwardly, but inside. Something shifted, and he kept going, "You can't treat her like this, not after what she's been through," and then he stormed off, leaving me standing there, wondering how many things about Emily I didn't know, how many smiles were armor, how many silent dinners were battlefields she'd already lost before I even walked in the room. And that night, just as I was settling into my usual routine of pretending I didn't care, Emily called and said her grandfather was having his 70th birthday, asked me if I'd come, and her voice was calm, almost distant, but there was a quiet hope buried deep in there that I couldn't ignore, so I told her I'd go, and the barrage was already spamming. "If James doesn't go, she's gonna cry into that giant orange plushie again, watch her sneak into his office just to stare at him. Bet she reads that password notebook when she's sad, and that notebook God, I hadn't thought about it since the day I saw it mentioned, but now it itched at the back of my brain like an unanswered question, so while she was out prepping the party, I used the barrage to track her location and slipped into her study, found the little black notebook with a lock, tried my birthday on the first go, and when it clicked open, I should have felt victorious, but instead I felt nauseous. Because page after page was detailed analysis of every single girl I'd ever dated, flaws, strengths, types, weaknesses, like she'd studied me, built a profile, reverse engineered the perfect woman based on my preferences, and turned herself into that exact person. And suddenly, I wasn't angry, I was terrified, because this wasn't love, it was design, obsession, performance. And when she walked in the door and saw me with the book in my hands, her face went pale, and I asked, "Anything you want to explain?" And she didn't even lie, just lowered her eyes and said, "I know it all looks bad." And I cut her off, "Why pretend to be someone else?" And she said, "Because you never liked what was real," and I laughed bitterly and said, "That's funny, considering I pursued you for months and you still turned me down," and her voice cracked when she said, "Because you told your friends once that the moment you got something, you lost interest in it. I didn't want to be something you threw away," and for the first time in a long time, I didn't have a comeback, because she was right. I did say that. I said it after a series of trash relationships where women used me for money, clout, or some other shallow reason, and I stopped trusting my own instincts, started pretending like nothing mattered, like every beautiful girl was just a con artist with a pretty face. But what I didn't know was that one offhand comment I made to save face in front of my friends became the reason Emily rejected me. The reason she changed herself instead of letting me see who she really was, and before I could tell her I was just insecure back then, she turned and ran, tears brimming, face pale, and the barrage was going wild. "Coax her, idiot, she thinks you're going to ask for a divorce. This is not the time to be silent, James." And I sat there, confused, frustrated, angry not at her, but at myself for being the kind of person who made her feel she had to become someone else just to be loved. And maybe that's why I didn't chase after her, maybe that's why I sat there until nightfall, until she showed up at the bar I went to, grabbed my arm without a word, and when I said, "What are you doing?" she just looked at me with that stubborn spark in her eyes and said, "Divorce me if you want, but I'm going to keep chasing you until you fall in love with me." And I didn't even try to hide my smirk, because despite everything, I liked that fire in her, liked the chaos and the challenge, and if she was going to chase me, she better be ready, because I wasn't going down easy. And later that week, when Ryan sent me a pathetic little message saying, "You win, Emily loves you," I screenshotted it and handed it to her without saying a word, watched her skim it with those big eyes, pout slightly, and I leaned in and whispered, "Do you know why I showed this to you?" And when she shook her head, I said, "Because Ryan annoyed me again, which means you're not sleeping tonight," and the look on her face when I kissed her, shocked, soft, slowly melting, was better than any victory I'd had so far. And we didn't stop until dawn, through the hallway, the kitchen, the bedroom, until even the barrage gave up. My screens black again, I've accepted them as canon. So much hate, so much heat, this is enemy to lover at its peak. And when I finally held her close, skin warm, heart beating steady, I whispered, "If you'd accepted my confession back then, Nicole, would have never happened. You were always the one I wanted." And after a long pause, she whispered, "Yeah, I guess I was kinda stupid." And the barrage cheered, "Welcome to today's episode of Outplaying Yourself with Overthinking," and I couldn't help but laugh. But then I turned serious and asked, "When did you fall in love with me?" and she looked at me sideways, biting her lip, and I teased, "Please don't say it was for my money, I need at least one pure thing in this world," and she chuckled and said, "Fine, I'll tell you. When I was in high school, I was dealing with some pretty heavy depression, and everything felt gray. Until one day I saw this guy. He was loud, annoying, always showing off, but he had this way of helping people without making them feel weak, like handing out money to classmates who needed it by turning it into games. $200 for homework, $300 for errands, $1,000 if you mopped the classroom, and called him boss, and it sounds dumb now, but it worked. He made people smile, made them feel like they weren't alone, and I thought maybe I wanted to follow someone like that, and I blinked, stunned. Because that guy was me, and I was just imitating some manga character back then, trying to be cool, never imagining someone actually noticed, let alone remembered, and she leaned into me and whispered, "I thought you were the light in my world, so I chased you, learned you, turned myself into the girl you'd love, because I didn't want to lose you," and I held her tighter, felt something warm and painful in my chest, and said, "I chased you for months and you didn't even accept a bottle of water from me," and she pouted, "Because you were so bad at it you never even asked me out properly," and I groaned, "Fine, then let's start over. Date me properly," and she grinned, "Okay, but this time I want flowers, dinner, gifts and a new bed every week," and I grinned back because I already bought out a flower shop, a jewelry store, a restaurant, and a furniture brand just for that purpose, and yeah, it's insane, but so are we, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Grandpa Carter's birthday banquet was basically a battleground disguised as a family reunion, and while he was cheerful and gracious, smiling like he'd won the lottery by watching his granddaughter marry into the G family, Emily and I both knew it was just the calm before the next storm, especially with her dad sitting there like a coiled viper, throwing subtle jabs about heirs and family duty, saying crap like, "A mother is honored by her son, so don't delay childbearing," as if Emily was a vending machine for babies instead of a human being with, actual opinions, and I could see her fingers tighten slightly around the edge of the table, her lips pressing into a line, but she didn't argue, just stayed silent and tried to shrink herself into the seat, so I stepped in without blinking, saying, "Funny thing, raising a kid requires more than just conception. It's called parenting, not producing," and boom, just like that, Mr. Carter's expression darkened like someone kicked his antique vase, and even Mrs. Carter, who usually just sat there like background furniture, stopped pretending to stir her soup and looked away like she didn't want to be collateral damage, and thank God Grandpa Carter jumped in and changed the topic, saying something light about the stock market or the weather. Honestly, I didn't catch it because my eyes were locked on Emily, who whispered a soft, "Thank you," without looking up, and even though I acted like I didn't care, that tiny moment burned into my memory like a win I never expected to need, but just when I thought I could relax, someone else started staring holes into my back across the table, and yep, it was her cousin Zoe Carter, the family's favorite disappointment with main character syndrome, who pulled me aside after dinner and said with this self-righteous smirk, "You must regret marrying Emily, don't you?" And I turned to look at her like she'd lost her mind, because honestly, the audacity of this girl could power a small city, and she kept going. "Emily's nothing but a pretty porcelain doll who can't even give you an heir," and before she could finish, I guided her outside, right to the koi pond behind the estate, and just as she kept flapping her gums about being a better match and how her father's side of the family would have made me CEO material in half the time, I smiled and kicked her into the pond. Yes, kicked heels in the air, splash, full submersion, and as she thrashed around swallowing designer perfume-scented water, I crouched down and said, "This is why I brought you here," and she hissed, "James, are you insane? I didn't do anything to you," and I said, "You insult my wife, you insult Mado it again, and next time it won't just be water," and when I turned around, Emily was standing there under the willow tree, eyes dark, unreadable, watching everything, and for a second I felt like I'd been caught vandalizing a church or something, but she didn't say a word, just stared at me, then at Zoe, who was now crawling out of the pond like a drowned cat, and I blurted out, "She faked it, tried to frame me, you saw that, right?" And Emily's lips twitched, "Yeah, I saw," and she fell into step beside me like nothing had happened, looping her arm through mine and leaning close as we walked away, then whispered with a slight laugh, "Was that the reason you came to this party?" And I shot back, "Why, not dramatic enough for you," and she didn't answer, just tilted her face away, but I saw the side of her expression, the slight pink in her cheeks. And the barrage was losing it, the second female lead is. Blushing, I'd cry too if someone dunked my bully for me. Y'all, this isn't enemies to lovers, this is gladiator to wife, and I pretended I didn't see any of it, wrapping my arm around her shoulders casually, pretending it meant nothing while my chest buzzed like a soda can about to pop, and after that night, things shifted between us in subtle, quiet ways, like she'd cling to me a little more when we slept, or she'd smile without realizing it when I walked into a room, but she still played it cool during the day, like she didn't remember telling me she'd chase me until I fell for her, and I played my part too, pretending to be busy scouting new store locations just to avoid dying from exhaustion at home, because I swear, I'd never been simultaneously seduced and physically destroyed the way Emily managed to do without even breaking a sweat. But about 2 weeks into this new soft era of ours, the barrage blew up while I was at one of my restaurants. Major plot twist: second female lead and male lead about to meet alone. This is it, boys, she's about to cheat, the angst is real, and before I could even sip my coffee, I was already standing up like someone yanked me by the collar, demanding, "Where are they?" And the comments went quiet for a second before collectively trolling me, "Lakeside Park, bro, but traffic's a mess, take the subway, go fast, or you'll miss the confrontation." And I didn't even hesitate. I threw on a cap, slapped on sunglasses, and hauled ass to the station, squeezed into the next train like it was Black Friday at Walmart, heart thudding like a war drum, and when I got to the park, they weren't there yet, so I waited on a bench like some lonely dog, barrage buzzing around me with commentary like, "He's there early. He must really love her, or he just wants to catch her red-handed," and when they finally arrived, I hid behind a tree like a full-on creeper, listening as Ryan Kim walked beside her, all sappy and guilty, saying, "I'm sorry for everything, Ryan, I know you did it all for me," and I nearly threw up on the spot, but then she looked at him and asked, "Do you really feel bad for me?" And he nodded so fast I thought his neck would snap. And she said, "Then can you do one last thing for me?" And he said, "Anything," looking like a golden retriever with abandonment issues, and then she smiled cold, sharp, lethal and said, "My husband's been ignoring me lately, can you walk by him again?" And the barrage collapsed into chaos. "She's trolling him, I'm sorry, is this a reverse Uno?" And Ryan blinked like his brain hit a 404 error, stuttering, "Ryan, what do you mean?" And she said clearly, "I don't want you interfering with me and my husband anymore, stay out of our lives," and he gasped, "I saved you once, you owe me a hat, have you liked James all along?" And she turned her back and walked away like he was dust, not even flinching when he shouted after her, and I was frozen, hiding behind the bushes like a loser with binoculars, feeling like I just watched the finale of a drama I didn't know I was starring in, and the barrage chimed in, "James, why you so quiet? Say something, you better go hug your woman, don't screw this up," but my head was spinning because if she liked me this whole time, why push me away before? Why fake being someone else? And I needed answers, so I went back to that friend of hers from our UK days and messaged her, casually asking if she remembered Emily back then, and she replied immediately like she'd been waiting, "Oh, it's really you. Emily used to time her breaks just to bump into you on campus. She even had this notebook with a password lock, always writing your name inside like it was a diary." Girl was down bad, and I stared at the screen for a solid minute, heart doing somersaults, thinking about that damn notebook and everything in it, and suddenly, her rejection, her transformation, her obsession, it all made sense, and the barrage was like, he's piecing it together. Emily was always endgame, bro, you better do something before she thinks you hate her again. And that's when I knew the next move was mine, not out of pity, not out of obligation, but because for the first time, I saw her not as a woman pretending to be my ideal, but as the one person who chose to become everything I'd ever wanted, not to deceive me, but just to be seen by me. And that's a kind of love I never even believed was real. After everything that happened at the park, I thought things would calm down, that maybe Emily and I could finally catch our breath and enjoy the awkward, messy peace we'd fought tooth and nail for. But peace doesn't last long in a family like hers, especially not with someone like Zoe Carter slithering around like a snake in heels. And sure enough, just a few days after the whole "I'll protect you from now on" moment, she cornered Emily again during a family gathering, talking some nonsense about stepping up to represent the younger generation, and I was already on edge when I heard Zoe say, loud enough for the room to hear, a woman who can't give birth isn't worthy of the Carter name, and I didn't even wait for Emily's reaction. I just walked over, took Zoe by the wrist, and calmly led her outside, back to that same koi pond, like deja vu with worse lighting, and I looked her dead in the eye and said, "Say it again." And she flinched, but she still had the nerve to scoff. "It's the truth, isn't it? Everyone knows she's a broken doll." So I took a step forward, and she immediately stepped back, her heels catching on the edge of the pond, and just before she could fall in again, Emily appeared behind me and said in a low voice, "Let her go, James," and I hesitated, turned to see her standing there in a sharp cream blazer, hair tied up, face calm but cold, and she walked straight up to Zoe and said, "You know, I used to think you were just pitiful, craving attention because no one ever chose you, but now I see, you're just cruel." And Zoe looked stunned, like she hadn't expected Emily to grow a spine overnight, and when Emily added, "Say one more word about my body and I'll press charges for harassment," the barrage went insane. Yara's queen, the second female lead, just activated her final form. Zoe's about to drown in karma, and Zoe stormed off in tears, humiliated, while Emily turned to me and whispered, "Thanks for standing up for me, but I want to do it myself next time." And I grinned, "Next time I'll let you shove her in the pond." And that night, back in our place, she didn't sleep in the guest room. She crawled into bed beside me without hesitation, wrapped herself around me like she belonged there, and when I asked, "So this is your way of thanking me?" she muttered, "It's my way of telling you I'm not going anywhere." And for once, there was no power play, no emotional manipulation, just warmth, quiet breathing, and fingers tangled together under the covers. Like we were finally learning how to be human again. But of course, the universe has a sick sense of humor, because the very next day, while I was setting up a surprise gift for Emily in one of my stores, guess who walked in instead? Nicole White, in full meltdown mode, mascara streaked, hair wild, eyes red like she hadn't slept in days, and she collapsed into me like she had the right, clutching my arms and crying, "James, I was wrong. I shouldn't have chased a knockoff version of you. I didn't realize how much you meant to me until I lost everything." And I froze, not because I cared, but because I was stunned she had the audacity to show up here, now, after everything, and before I could push her away, she went for the dramatics, whispering, "My family disowned me, Ryan left me, please give me another chance," and then she actually tried to kiss me, and that's when I slapped her hand and said, "You think I'm a collector of knockoffs? You think I'm some fool who'll take you back after you treated me like a placeholder? Get the hell out." And just as she stumbled back, Ryan Kim entered the store, saw everything, and his face twisted into this ugly mix of heartbreak and rage, and he said, "So you're still in love with him? After everything?" And Nicole, that absolute disaster of a woman, had the nerve to look confused, like she hadn't just tried to cheat on both of us at once, and before I could tell him to take his trash out, Emily appeared behind me like a freaking goddess descending from the clouds, strode right up to Nicole, and slapped her across the face without hesitation, shouting, "Stay away from my husband. Might be too decent to hit a woman, but I'm not," and the barrage blew up like the 4th of July. Second female lead just claimed her man. Nicole got clapped so hard her makeup left the building. Somebody record this and upload it to Justice Porn, and Nicole gasped, held her cheek, but didn't fight back, because deep down, she knew she lost, and just as things got chaotic, police showed up. Turns out Ryan called them before entering, and Nicole was escorted out for trespassing and harassment, leaving us standing there in silence as the cops dragged her away, and I turned to Ryan, who was sitting on the curb, dazed, and said, "You better start thinking about yourself instead of wasting your life chasing women who treat you like an option." And he looked up at me, tired and defeated, and nodded slightly, and I didn't wait for more. I took Emily's hand and walked out into the night with her beside me, lights overhead twinkling through the trees like something out of a movie. And when I tried to head toward the car, she tugged me back and said, "Why not just walk for once? Let me experience what it's like to hold your hand like a normal couple." And I laughed, "Who said I'm normal?" And she rolled her eyes, "Shut up, I'm the one chasing you, remember?" And I let her pull me down the sidewalk like we were two kids sneaking out of prom, and then she whispered near my ear, "Do you want to know when you'll finally catch me?" And I stopped walking, looked down at her, and said, "When?" And she smiled with that quiet spark she always has when she's about to say something that will wreck me emotionally, "On the day I have the perfect wedding." And I didn't say anything back, just nodded slowly and smiled to myself, because I knew exactly what I'd be doing starting tomorrow, and the barrage didn't even need to comment, because for once, we were all thinking the same thing: game on. From the second she said it had she'd only be caught the day she had the most perfect wedding. I made it my mission to give Emily Carter exactly that, the kind of wedding that would shut every mouth, rewrite every rumor, and crown her not as the second female lead but as the only woman worth standing beside me in the end. So while she thought I was just running my usual businesses, I secretly took over an entire resort property, restructured the interior to match her favorite color palette, commissioned the florist I overheard her gushing about 3 months ago, and even flew in the string quartet she once sent me a YouTube clip of at 2 a.m. saying, "This is what forever sounds like." And yeah, it was over the top, expensive, unnecessary, but so was she, so was this love, and I didn't care if the whole world thought I was ridiculous, because for the first time, I was doing something that felt completely right. But just as I was finalizing the last few details, life decided to test me one more time. Because Nicole White, who apparently still hadn't learned the meaning of dignity, decided to show up at my store again, this time with crocodile tears and no makeup, sobbing about how her parents had completely cut her off and how she finally realized I was the only one who ever truly cared for her. And before I could respond, she literally tried to kiss me, and right on cue, Ryan Kim walked in, saw the scene, and went dead silent, his entire face collapsing into this mask of betrayal, and he muttered, "Then what was I?" before backing out like a ghost. And Nicole, that manipulative disaster of a woman, spun around and tried to chase after him like she hadn't just nuked her last remaining relationship, and that's when I'd had enough. I grabbed her wrist, yanked her back, and said, "You don't love anyone, Nicole, not even yourself. You just love being loved." And the barrage was screaming, "Drag her, expose the green tea. Finally, our boy is ruthless again." But it didn't stop there, because right after that, as if fate had perfect comedic timing, Emily walked in, holding a document in her hand, and said to Nicole, in the coldest voice I'd ever heard from her, "This is the restraining order, just in case you didn't get the message the first 5 times." And then, to my absolute shock, she stepped forward and slapped Nicole clean across the face with all the elegance of a mafia boss's wife protecting her turf, then said, "And that was from high school me, who actually admired you for 10 minutes before realizing you were trash." And Nicole had no words, just staggered back and left with nothing but her pride bleeding down the sidewalk. And the barrage lost it. Emily Carter for president, the real main character, has entered the chat. James, lock her down now or we will. And I didn't say anything right away, just looked at Emily like I was seeing her for the first time all over again, because the woman standing in front of me wasn't a second female lead anymore. She was the main character, period. And that night, back at our place, I showed her the final wedding plans, pulled her close and whispered, "I know I've been a mess, and you've been messy too, but if there's one thing I'm sure of, it's you." And she looked at the designs, the floral prints, the tiny notes I'd added in the margins about her favorite drinks and songs, and she didn't cry like I thought she would. She laughed, hugged me, and said, "You idiot, I've already loved you since you were handing out cash in high school like a delinquent Robin Hood." And I couldn't even argue, just kissed her right there in the middle of the guest room. And when the big day arrived, she walked down the aisle like every step she took erased all the mess behind us, and I swear the entire city held its breath when I said, "I do," because that wasn't just a vow, it was a declaration that I chose her, not for revenge, not for convenience, but because no matter how many times we fought, broke, or shattered, we still found our way back. And later that night, as we finally collapsed into bed, Emily curled into me and murmured, "You know, if you had just given me a soda during your courtship phase, I might have said yes sooner." And I groaned into the pillow, "I was broke back then and trying to look cool, okay?" And she smirked, "You failed at both." And I rolled over, kissed her neck, and whispered, "Too bad you still fell for me." And she muttered, "Yeah, against my better judgment," but her fingers laced with mine like she never wanted to let go. And sometime around 3 a.m., while she was fast asleep, I scrolled through the barrage again and saw comments like, "So in the end, second female lead and White Moonlight got their shameless happy ending. The true villain was the system that told us who deserved love," throwing digital flowers while crying in single, and one that just read, "Heaven really helps those who make chaos entertaining." And I chuckled, whispered, "Thanks for watching," then kissed my wife's forehead and finally closed my eyes, knowing that for once, I wasn't a supporting role, a placeholder. Or someone else's plot device. I was exactly where I belonged, in the arms of the woman who schemed to love me right, who played the long game and won, and if that makes us the villains in someone else's romance, so be it, because this is our story, and we wrote it in fire, noise, and one hell of a black screen finale.